Some really interesting Strixhaven leaks have come up, but the question is, are they real or are they fake? Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here for another fun Strixhaven spoiler question mark video because we've got some leaks, but the question is, how legitimate are these leaks? So what I'm going to do is go over the information we have and I'll let you know my opinion on these cards. We've done this in the past. We did it with the actual Godzilla cards, and it turns out that I was 100% wrong about those, so who knows? But we've got some information here that in some ways almost feels too good to be true. So let's take a look at these cards, and by take a look, I really mean you take a listen, because this spoiler, this leak, does not include any images, which, I mean, I will say outright, not including images does reduce the credibility of the possibility of these being real, although I will also counterbalance that by saying we have had a number of text leaks recently that have been accurate. So basically, the idea behind these leaks, it was posted by somebody who said that they got this from a pretty trustworthy source they've been working with for a while, and yeah, basically that's it. So it starts out with Kasmina. Kasmina, Honorable Prefect. So this is 2 blue and 3 for a legendary planeswalker. Obviously, it's Kasmina. Whenever a wizard enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card, then discard a card, and put a loyalty counter on Kasmina. 0, create a 2/2 blue wizard creature token, and -3 loyalty, return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hand. And it has a starting loyalty of 4. So it is interesting to note, if this is actually the card that's being spoiled, that is a funky, non-traditional way of increasing this creature's loyalty, right? You have the fact that whenever a wizard comes out, not just the wizard that's made by the 0 ability, but whenever any wizard comes out, you're going to get to put a loyalty counter on Kasmina on top of card filtering, right? You get to draw a card and discard a card. But either way, you can crank this planeswalker's loyalty pretty hardcore. Now, the other thing that kind of balances that out is the fact that the ultimate is pretty weak. It's -3, return up to 2 creatures. So yes, you do get to bounce 2 creatures, but it's certainly not a game-breaking ultimate ability, right? So in that kind of a scenario, you end up going, all right, well, I mean, yeah, it can create its own creatures, it can bounce. It doesn't feel too overpowered. The original ability of basically like a wizard has come out, draw and discard a card, kind of like a teaching aspect. So it does fit. And I mean, Kasmina is one of the creatures, or I should say planeswalkers, that I was expecting to have appear in Strixhaven. It seems like a natural fit from the original Kasmina card that we've seen. So that is both a point in favor of it being real, but also a point in favor of it not being real. And you may be asking yourself, wait, how does this work? Well, the reason that I say that is, yes, Kasmina is a good fit for Strixhaven, but also everybody's talked about that. It's very well known and expected. And when something's already expected, it's much easier to convince people that it's true, right? Like if somebody believes that their house is like, my house has ghosts in the walls, and you come in and you listen, oh yeah, I hear that gurgling, you got wall ghosts. They'll be like, I knew it. But that doesn't mean there are actually wall ghosts, right? That's just like a confirmation of what somebody had already convinced themselves was reality. So we're all sitting here thinking that Kasmina is going to be in the set anyways, which makes it really easy pickings, okay? So we've also got another spell tied to Kasmina called Kasmina's Summons. Now, there is a double line going along here, and I can't tell if that's supposed to break up the cards or if this is actually supposed to be on the other side of Kasmina. So, Kasmina Summons is 1 blue and 3 for a sorcery. Create a 2/2 blue wizard creature token, Then draw a card for each wizard you control. Okay, so that's the whole thing. Oh, this isn't, the rest of this isn't abilities. This is the person who's made the post saying, Kasmina makes tokens and has cheap removal for her loyalty abilities, which is nice, and her backside is free gas for wizards decks. Okay, so this spoiler is actually saying that Kasmina will be a double-sided planeswalker. And I mean, we do have a bunch of double-sided cards recently, so that would fit in. Like, it is theoretically possible. It certainly doesn't feel too strong. So this card could exist, all right? So that's the first one that we have to take a look at. Now, the next one we have to look at is even more of this confirmation of what people are expecting. And that's Jin-Gitaxias, or Jin-Gitaxias, however you want to pronounce it. So, Jin-Gitaxias, Sly Instigator, 2 blue and 5. So this is a 7 casting cost Praetor. Legendary Phyrexian Praetor. If I'm not mistaken, Vorinclex, didn't Vorinclex just say Phyrexian? Is Praetor a creature type? That, to me, I'm not 100% on. That right there raises a flag, but if Praetor's a creature type, I will withdraw that concern. I will admit that I've been involved with Magic for almost 3 decades now, and they have done a number of changes to how creature types work. Like, they've cleaned things up and removed a bunch of creature types, and then they've added a bunch of creature types, and now they do things like creature type is 2 different things. It's like your race and your job. So bird, soldier, goat, wizard. You know what I mean? So it may be that Praetor's a creature type, but I feel like Vorinclex just said Phyrexian. That's not enough for me to automatically go, this isn't real. Anyhow, Jin-Gitaxias has flash, can't be countered. You may cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn without paying its mana cost. And whenever an opponent casts their first instant or sorcery spell each turn, counter that spell. So, I mean, I have to be real. Aside from cheating this guy into play, it doesn't feel too overpowered. Yeah, it's going to let you play an instant or sorcery spell for free every turn, which will add up and would be crazy with the ultimatums. But ultimately, I feel like you have to pay 7 mana to get it out. So if you get it out legitimately, you've already paid a ton of mana, and it's probably late game where a lot of things are decided. So it doesn't feel that off kilter. I have to admit that the second ability that counters the first instant or sorcery your opponent casts each turn, that is pretty gross, because the wording of this means that it happens on my turn and your turn. So you'll need 2 pieces of removal to get rid of this creature. So there is that level of power, but I don't know. I mean, when we saw Vorinclex was so incredibly strong that I feel like this might be a little bit underpowered. That being said, it might just be I need to see this in action to realize, wait, no, this is far more busted than I thought. Because sometimes when I look at a card, it's not obvious to me how inherently broken it is. I think the perfect example of me being completely unaware of how crazy a card was going to be was Oko. When Oko was, when we originally got like Oko, I was obsessed with what a food token was because I had no idea. And so that's where most of my focus went. And I didn't really pay attention to how insanely powerful the card is. So it's totally possible that this creature, I don't think I said the power and toughness, did I? Sorry, it's a 5/7. 7 mana for a 5/7 flash, can't be countered, lets you play your first instant or sorcery each turn without paying its mana cost. And whenever an opponent casts their first instant or sorcery spell each turn, counter that spell. So that's pretty nutty. I guess it's an opponent. Is that supposed to be each opponent? Like, how does that work? How would that work in Commander? I don't know. Anyways, this is another one that falls into that sort of like pre-confirmed bias where we have expectations. Once Vorinclex was spoiled in Call Time, there were 2 different trains of thought that people took from that point. Departing thought station, all aboard! So one train of thought basically was, okay, we're going to get all the Praetors in Call Time. We're going to have a Phyrexian invasion on Call Time. But very quickly, as the spoilers came out, we found out, no, we're not going to have any of the other Praetors. But the other thing that people thought was that we would get a Praetor for each individual set going forwards from Call Time. And theoretically, that is possible. They may be doing it in that way. I'm not sure if we're going to be looking at Phyrexians being seeded amongst different sets, or if they do intend to have a whole chain of these. But I will say that even with Call Time, we had them trying to spoof the Praetor concept where people made a fake, what's her name? Atraxa? Not Atraxa. Elish Norn. There we go. They made a fake Elish Norn and presented it as if it was a Kaldheim card. So when it comes to things that people already expect, it's way easier to have them just go, oh yeah, you know what, that's definitely coming, that's gotta be the case, right? So for me, this totally feeds into that. The power level, like, this is gonna be a mythic card. And the power level actually feels a little bit lower than what Wizards would go with in current times, right? We're living in the time of Fire Design, where Magic design is incredibly accelerated in terms of power. So especially when it comes to mythic rares, which there's no way this would be anything else, when it comes to mythic rares, you have this scenario where if it's not insanely powerful, I don't believe it as likely to exist. That's just the reality of the situation. So for me, this feels like it's probably not real. Now, the next claim that's being made is that level up is probably going to be a small set mechanic. The word like probably, the language that's used in here. I mean, I'm not automatically saying these are fake, but I will admit, especially when we get into some other things in here, you'll find that I lean heavily towards fake for these. So, level up is supposed to be a mechanic in the set. They're saying the source says it might be the cycle he's seen, but it also could end up being a lot more cards. This whole, I'm going through someone else, I don't have any card images. Previously, when we got these sort of text spoilers, they were usually more from the horse's mouth. Like, I've seen these cards, I have inside information, right? So, level up, this is supposed to be the level card. Egg Observer. 1 blue and 1 for a human wizard. It's got level up for 1 and a blue, which means you pay 2 mana in total, put a level up counter on it, and you can only level up at sorcery speed. So when you make it, it starts out as a 2/2. When you level it up once, it becomes a 2/3. When you level it up a second time, now it has flying, and whenever it attacks, make a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying, and it's a 3/4. So this is a 3/4 flyer when it's level 2. So at that point, you've spent 6 mana. It's a 3/4 flyer that creates a 2/2 blue Drake token. And level 3, it has flying, tap, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying, 4/4. What? So the wording of this is really confusing, I have to admit. I don't know if it's something that's been left out, but shouldn't these abilities stack? So shouldn't you have it whenever it attacks, you make a 2/2 blue Drake and it can tap to make a 2/2 blue Drake? I have to admit that those two abilities feel very counterproductive. Normally when you'll see something that taps to make a token, they'll go give it vigilance or something like that. So you can swing with it and tap to make a token, or it just makes a token. But having a tap ability to make a token and an attack ability to make a token are completely in like opposites to each other. So I don't know. This seems to me like, I don't know. It feels sloppy. It could theoretically be something if you cleaned up the wording a bit, but it feels so off. So the next card we have is called Pour Over the Scrolls. This is 2 blue and 3 for an instant. Draw 2 cards. Then you may cast an instant or sorcery from your hand with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in your hand without paying its mana cost. Okay, so on the surface, 5 mana, draw 2 cards. And if you had 3 cards in your hand before you cast it, then boom, you've drawn 2 more. Now you're up to 5 cards. You get to cast a spell that costs 5 or less from your hand for free. That actually doesn't feel too outside of what they could do, right? It is 5 mana, so it's got a high casting cost. But here's the thing, and some of you may have already picked up on this. It says converted mana cost. And we've seen spoilers for Strixhaven already, and we know they've changed the wording. Converted mana cost is no longer the parlance used for that. Now, the terminology is mana value. So this should actually say play with the mana value. Now, if we're being 100% fair, if it turns out that this guy did just see somebody else's cards or somebody else was telling him about this, then his brain may just have logged it as converted mana cost and may not have really had the mana value stuck in his brain. But at the same time, mana value is a really weird term to run into when you're used to converted mana cost. So to me, this is a really big red flag that says, I don't think so. Like, the fact that it starts with Kasmina and Jinchataxis, it's got my flag is down here. It's kind of like, you know, we know these guys are probably, these are things that people are already predicting are going to show up. You're already taking easy bait. But then when you've got converted mana cost, I go up the flag like, up here now. I'm up here, okay? So, we have another card to talk about that also adds another level of I don't really believe this, these are probably fake into the mix. And this is Aflin School Excavationist. And it's 4 generic, a blue and a white. For a legendary human wizard, whenever Aflin or another non-token wizard enters the battlefield under your control, create a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token. Golem creatures you control are flying as long as the wizard you control is flying. The same is true for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance. And it's a 3/3. So, I mean, from a flavor perspective, the idea of this school excavationist who is unearthing the parts to make different golems and things like that is a pretty funky concept. And the idea of these golems being infused with magical abilities based on what, like, other wizards you have, like, it fits into a wizard tribal concept. But honestly, the biggest problem I'm having with this is its casting cost. It's white-blue. And we know the school has, like, Strixhaven has 5 colleges, and none of the colleges are white-blue. Now, this doesn't mean a card like this couldn't exist in Strixhaven, right? Theoretically, you could have, okay, well, you know what? The students are part of these colleges, but the teachers are considered above them. Or this is a special, independent, individual researcher, whatever. Like, there's ways to make it work within the flavor concept. But when you take it in combination with everything else, it really does make this all feel like it's fake to me. As I said before, I was wrong about the Godzilla stuff, but all I can do is when these kind of leaks happen is evaluate the information that's provided and give you my genuine, honest opinion. And my honest opinion is that these are not real Magic cards. Now, if you have a different opinion, go ahead, or I mean, whatever. Tell me whatever you'd like in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts. I'm going to put up the scroll of the most wizardly patrons that I have. They are wizardrific. So, thanks to them, thanks to me, thanks to you, and get out of here. Beat it. I said get.